Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Tunnel Podcast, episode 35 of the greatest podcast in the world. He's sitting there laughing as he's ready for me to hiccup. There one goes. Yes, I do have the hiccups. Hopefully they'll go throughout the hour. I'm delighted to say, as always, I'm joined by, that's ridiculous, joined by Tom Goff. Tom, how are we doing?
All right, mate. I might be joining you because I've just absolutely wolfed my dinner down, proper late dinner. Bit of cheese and potato pie, mate. I haven't had that for years. Proper old school, that, innit?
Yeah, keeps you warm, mate, in this weather. That's what it is.
That's it, yeah. So, but like I said, I've wolfed it down to get on the pod with you, like. So I might drop a few hiccups in a bit as well.
I feel like one of the seven dwarfs here sitting hiccuping. There was like this. Honestly, there's some Disney cartoon where the character just sits and hiccups, but we will get through it. Listen, loads and loads to talk about. It's been a massive week in the Championship. There's been games, there's been managerial appointments. But we're going to start in South Yorkshire, as we seem to often do on this podcast, with Sheff Wed Wednesday. It was the Fans Forum last night. They have this annually. Shansiri invites the fans to come along and ask questions. And listen, we'll get to the good, the bad, and the ugly of it throughout the next kind of 20 minutes. However, start with you because there's loads and loads of talking points come out of this, Tom. The owner, let's get one thing straight. He's a foreigner. He's obviously, some of the stuff can get lost in translation, but maybe you can excuse one or two pieces. But a lot of it is really negative stuff. Let's not forget Sheff Wed Wednesday are 3 points outside the playoffs.
Yeah, it's just a bit unbelievable, really. You know, the kind of the updates that were coming through last night from the fans forum. And yeah, I think you're being very, very kind to the chap there, mate, by saying, there might be a bit of lost in translation. I just think he's a wrong un, basically, and I genuinely feel sorry for the Sheffield Wednesday fans at this moment in time, because we talked about him a bit back, didn't we, about just kind of reinforcing how good a job Danny Roll's doing with really limited resources. And we were saying that if he can even just get a little bit of backing in the January transfer window, a couple of really key additions to strengthen his team, then he's got what it takes to get them to potentially sneak them into the playoffs. But we were saying it's all going to come down, in our opinion anyway, and I think we're the opinion shared by the vast majority of Sheffield Wednesday fans out there, in that what they do in this window will determine whether they have a chance of getting in the playoffs or not. So they're kind of tuning in last night, hoping for some positive news, but it was anything but. It was just kind of question after question was just kind of thrown back by him in a real, like you said, negative manner, with not much in the way of like I said, positive news. And if anything, it's just got the fans asking even more questions come the end of it. The key one being is has there been a bust up between Shansiri and Danny Roll? Because you could easily have gotten that vibe from the way he was answering the questions and outlining his relationship with Roll at this period in time. So like I said, I feel sorry for Sheffield Wednesday fans at this moment in time, because there's obviously a lot of uncertainty as to where they go from here.
Listen, let's start with that point then. The fact that you've just highlighted it, the fact that Shansiri himself says he's not spoke to the manager since December. Now that would maybe tie in with the Southampton links. I don't know if that would maybe at the start of December. Which, by the way, he said Danny Rowe wasn't ready for Southampton. He's not that calibre of a manager yet, which seems crazy to be talking down your gaffer when he's got you into this position. However, and then he went on to say that Danny Rowe hasn't given him a January shopping list. No, we're midway through the window. I also found that that Danny Rowe wasn't there, to be honest. I found that quite strange. If you're going to have a fans forum, and I thought the manager should, even if he's not fronting questions about the squad or the team, should still be sat maybe alongside the chairman as well. But what do you make of that? Because it was hardly a vote of confidence.
Well, yeah, like you said, mate. People are going to read between the lines, like you say. First and foremost, Danny Roll, why wasn't he there? Okay, there might be some legitimate excuse as to why he's not there. Obviously, the fixtures have been coming thick and fast of late. He might not have been available. I think in terms of in regard to that, there's probably there are probably some valid reasons as to why he wasn't able to be present. Working hard on the game at the weekend, so on. They've got a massive game, haven't they, at the weekend against Leeds. So yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that, but I definitely think you can read something into what he said about how long it's been since they spoke with one another. Like you said, it times in perfectly with around the time when Southampton were heavily linked with him. It kind of hints, doesn't it, that maybe Roll wasn't happy at, maybe not, maybe he wasn't even allowed to speak to him, not given the opportunity to at least have a discussion with Southampton, hear them out. It definitely kind of points in that direction. And then, like you said, for the chairman to then openly kind of, rip into him in stating that, yeah, he's not good enough for the Premier League yet, and we're talking about Southampton here as well, who were in the same division as them last season. It's not like we're talking about, I don't know, a West Ham or someone like that, mid-table team. We're talking about a team rooted to the bottom of the Premier League who are almost definitely coming back down into the Championship next season. So it's just madness, mate. The more you read about it, the more crazier it gets. Even if this guy was thinking some of these things, you just can't be saying that in front of your own fans. Like it just absolutely. I don't know what the only message I think you can take from the whole thing is that he doesn't want to be the owner anymore. He wants rid of the club. He ain't bothered. He ain't fussed. He hasn't got the club's best interests at heart. And he's got to a point now where he doesn't care about coming out and saying that, to the fans' faces. I don't know what else you can potentially take from it. Do you know what I mean?
Listen, he's been at the club a decade now. To go from Milan Mandaric, I'm sure you remember from his Portsmouth days. I think he had a time at Leicester as well. Milan still going on at some Serbian club. I think he's a vice president there as well. So, but Shansidi's he's split opinion up and down that tenure. Look, he's oversaw getting them back into the Championship, but there has been times where he hasn't paid players' wages. You look at the money spent on players. He's kind of broke even in that sense when you look at it over the 10-year period. So it's not like he's put a lot of money into the club in terms of buying players. The buying and selling can almost breaks even. He's about 100. The club's about, I think it's about 120 million over that period of time. He split the company in the ground. It's a fractured business now. The training ground has been upgraded since the 1990s. The ground itself, although you've been there of late, it's a very old-fashioned ground. Again, point in need of updating. There's been mistakes, sackable, questionable managing appointments. Setting up companies like D Taxis that now sponsor the back of the shirts. Whether that's a legitimate taxi company in Sheffield, I don't know. I've never used them. If you do, we'll get in touch, like, comment, all that jazz. He's put Shansidio over the seats in the stadium. Shansidio was on the shirt at one point as well. We spoke, we're going to speak with Chad about Manchester City and whether they've been accused of financial doping by Etihad on the jerseys, and the owners sponsored themselves. Shansidio's also done a bit of that as well. It just seems really, really a bad situation for Sheffield Wednesday, and it's maybe been glossed over by the progression they're making under this manager. Now, let's strip it back to football and business. He said, the manager, I can't believe this, midway through the January window hasn't come to him with any signings or any potential signings. Now, you and I have spoke for numerous weeks before the window even opened about how wide open the playoff push is and how important January is going to be for 9, 10, 12 clubs, because they're all pushing, trying to get these last two spots. I just find that bizarre and possibly untrue.
Well, that's why I just say that I just feel that he's just had enough now, and that he wants rid of the club. You know, he wants to sell up as quickly as possible and wash his hands of the club, because, like you say, this is the best opportunity that Sheffield Wednesday have had for some time in getting back to the Premier League. Like you say, the kind of top four of running away with it a little bit, but then there's probably another 8 teams then who are fighting for those last two playoff spots, and Sheffield Wednesday are right in the mix of all that. And they've arguably got the best head coach in the division, at their disposal. So, if he was, determined to get back to the Premier League, then you think, he'd see this as good an opportunity as maybe there's been since he came in and took over at the club. So that's why it just hints to me that it's one of two things, isn't it? It's one of two things, that he's either, like I said, he's just made his decision now. He wants to sell up. He's not fussed about what he comes out and says, or he's had a big bust up with Danny Roll. There's been a bust up behind the scenes, maybe because of the links, the teams that were interested in towards the end of last year. He had Premier League interest. Maybe there's been a bust up there because Chansiri hasn't maybe let him speak to some of these clubs and try and negotiate a move. Because you just cannot believe that Danny Rock, what he's done so far, his short tenure in Sheffield Wednesday. He comes across as a very professional head coach. An intelligent,
the type of manager to leave any stone unturned, does he?
Yeah, exactly. He seems very intelligent in his interviews. He's obviously doing a bit of punditry and stuff. I cannot for 1 minute think that there's been no attempt from him and his team to strengthen in this transfer window. It's just, that's absolutely bonkers, isn't it? There's no way that's happened. So like I said, mate, I just think it's just a really crazy situation. Like I said, I feel sorry for the Wednesday fans. Did you hear about the Sheikh Charles? What happened with Sheikh Charles?
Yeah, let's move on to that, because he was asked during the question about Sheikh Charles and said he was staying, and then straight afterwards, away from the forum, when he was kind of being questioned by a couple of reporters, said no, he's gone. Now, whether he just got a text message from the Southampton chairman, we do not know. I think they had until midnight actually last night to recall him, Sheikh Charles, but. And to add insult to injury, before we've been coming onto the pod, there's been a lot of steam gathering that Chris Wilder's going to nip in and take this kid for the rest of the season, which would be unforgivable if you're a Wednesday fan. But look, okay, maybe we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he didn't know about that. Okay, we will give. But there was a question where he was asked, "What's the plan for the future?" Which seems a reasonably open-ended question for a fan to ask. And he said, "Of course, we have a plan. But what is the point of saying it? Because it depends what happens on the pitch. I don't know why you're even asking, because it doesn't affect you." Which, look, you're in. This is an opportunity to endear yourself to supporters. Again, it could be cultural. I do not know, but that just seems like that's a kick in the face to Wednesday fans, not only in the room but the wider support as well. Because I know a lot of there was Premier League games on last night. There was Scottish Premiership games on last night. There was a lot of televised football last night. But the Wednesdayites were sat glued to Twitter at home watching these responses coming in, and it was dig after dig after dig. These lads on Tuesday night were looking forward to a Yorkshire derby on Sunday and sitting, 8th, 9th in the league. Now it's all doom and gloom. It just seems like it's turned the whole thing on its head.
Yeah, it's like you said. But look, again, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there's a bit of lost in translation there. But if you really, genuinely, cared about the fan base and you wanted to come along to this event and make a good impression and say the right things, you would either do a bit of kind of comms, PR training beforehand, you know, going through the questions that you're likely going to get asked by the fan base, because it doesn't take a genius to work out the kind of questions that are going to come your way, is it? It's going to be, like you said, what are the plans for the future? What are the plans for the January transfer window? You know, what are your plans with Danny Roll? You know, we're not even Wednesday fans. We could have guessed all the questions that we're going to get asked of him. So, you know, if he had any actual, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, I'm just trying to think of the word in terms of him wanting
common sense.
Yeah, well, just common sense. Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, in terms of him and his personality, if he wanted to come over, like you said, across well to the Sheffield Wednesday fans at this forum, he would have either, like I said, done a bit of training beforehand, anticipated the questions, worked with someone in their PR team, whatever, or taken someone alongside him and sat someone down with him. So if there was a bit of kind of confusion and a bit of, like you said, lost in translation, you know, there's someone there to help him through the questions, etc. Yeah, this is why I don't think that's the case. I just think the guy, you know, it's quite clear the guy is very arrogant. He's got an ego, 100%. You know, and he, you know, like you said, the way he answers his questions, he's almost insulted that a fan of the football club are asking what are you doing? You know, what's the club's ambitions for the future? You know, what's going on behind the scenes to try and help Sheffield Wednesday progress? You know, like how dare you? Kind of, yeah. It's like I said, mate.
He said previously regarding protests. Now there's been protests throughout his tenure, certain periods of time, and he was said, look, you've got no right to protest. If you don't want to come, don't come. But if you come to watch the game, sit and watch the game. Do not protest. Now, I've shared images with you. I'm sure people watching have seen images on social media. The fans are kind of gathering now. Certain fan groups are putting, whether it's placards or banners outside the ground saying that, you know, it's time for him to go. He was pressed on selling the club, and he said his retort was, "Will you find me someone to sell to?" Which seems crazy, because to me, Sheffield Wednesday is an institution in English football. It's a massive club. They've got a really good support. I don't know if you saw their away support at Coventry in the FA Cup. They've got a really good pardon me, these hiccups. Got a really good travelling fan base. However, if you sort of strip it back, then maybe what I was alluding to. Sorry, I'm not filming this on a Tamagotchi. I don't know what's happening with my camera. If you allude back to what I was saying before, maybe the asset stripping is putting buyers off. If he stripped the stadium and he stripped the training ground and the separate assets, and, you know, maybe the club's laden with a bit of debt, then it may not be the attractive proposition that we think it could be. It just seems really sad given what could happen off the back of this. Now, I've got a father-in-law, he won't mind me saying, he's a massive Wednesday. He's had a season ticket in the Cop for 20 odd years, and he was saying to me that they're in real trouble, and the only thing that's going to save him is a promotion to the Premier League, you know, the riches that come with that, and then maybe a buyer coming in. But it seems a massive gamble, doesn't it, Tom, given how many clubs are in that run in, and given, you know, they've probably got, as you say, the best manager in the division for that situation, but he's not going to hang around for long, is he?
No, I can. Yeah, like I said, just reading between the lines of all what happened last night and what was said, and I'd be very surprised to see, you know, Danny Roll stick around. You know, if we come to the end of January, you know, and no one's been bought. Obviously, Shea Charles went back to Southampton. You know, he's left the club. He's been one of their, you know, most important players so far this season. You know, no one else comes through the door. January transfer window closes. Yeah, I can't see Roll sticking about, because, like I said, he's hot property, isn't he? There's going to be countless teams out there. You know, managers are going to lose their jobs between now and the end of the season. You know, in the Premier League, Championship, you know, top divisions in Europe are all going to be interested in him. He won't be short of suitors. So, yeah, I just like I said, the more you just think about it, crazy it gets. Again, you know, if he's got ambitions of selling the club, then you're going to be a more sellable asset if you can get to the Premier League, aren't you? Look, get to the Premier League, and then put the club up for sale. You're going to get a better price. It's going to be much more. Like I said, it's going to be much more appealing for potential buyers if you've managed to get them in the Premier League. And this is the thing. I don't think they need to spend crazy amounts of money. I just look at we're going to get onto some of the transfers that have happened so far in January, but kind of look at some of the players that have moved so far, thinking Sheff Wed Wednesday obviously aren't going to be splashing any cash. They are going to be kind of dealing in the bargain bin, so to speak. But I look at some of the players that have moved already, thinking, well, he would have been a good addition for Sheff Wed Wednesday. He would have been a good addition. And this is all that Danny Roll needs. He just needs a bit more depth because he's proven that he can take, I don't want to say average, that sounds a bit harsh, but, he can take kind of solid players at championship level and get a little bit extra out of them and turn them into kind of playoff pushing level. So yeah, it's crazy, really. I can't imagine Rolls in the background going, I want millions and millions and millions. He knows the situation. He signed up to it. He signed a new deal, but it's just like we said, a bit back that this is the one potential thing that could derail Sheff Wed Wednesday, and unfortunately, it looks like it's the case. They're trying to think what to call him. I don't know what you'd call him. He's the thing is like you just say, he's been there 10 years. 10 years. There's not any part of him that has a bond to the club now. There's a part of him that has a love and some admiration for the team, and there's determination there from him to try and get them back into the top flight of English football. It's a bit sad, really, isn't it?
Well, for Wednesday fans, Milan Mandaric saved the club from going out of existence, and he comes in, stabilises, and then sells it on to Shansiri. Now he does the same at Leicester and sells it on to those guys who have gone and taken Leicester to next level. Okay, and I think Wednesday fans are maybe looking at that and thinking, well, that should be us, but with Shansiri, something's missing, and whether it's he's been rubbed up the wrong way in the early years, or whether he's very stubborn. I know he tried to get help in a few years ago. He tried to get guys below him to help with recruitment. I think even Glenn Roeder was involved at one point, and they only kind of lasted a few months because of turmoil inside and Shansiri's own stubbornness. So listen, it'll be one to watch. I kind of just to end on it, I think Danny Rowe, you heard him speaking a couple of weeks ago. He said, look, you'll see what happens in January as to what the ambitions are of this football club. So if he's not backed in January, I dare say he will be looking to leave the football club. As you say, he's so good at squeezing every last drop out of what he's got, and that makes him very special. And I've said this on this podcast before, almost Corberan-like in the sense of getting the most out of what he's got, and I think that's the real sort of shining light in that football club. So we'll keep that one. We'll come back to it as we go through the window. We will touch on that game at the weekend later on in the pod, but let's switch attention then to the bottom. Plymouth have appointed obviously a successor to Wayne Rooney. Muslic comes in. I don't know if you've seen the big speech he gave before the first game on X. There was loads and loads of tweets saying, I don't know who this guy is, but I'd run through a brick wall for him now, and it was all really positive. And they go on to get that 1-1 draw with Oxford the other night. It's really tight down the bottom, Tom. Really, really tight. We've spent a lot of time focusing on the playoffs and the top, the race for automatic promotion. But I think tonight we'll switch that focus to the bottom. Firstly, what have you made of this guy? Because look, I didn't know anything about him until he came in, but he looks a tough cookie.
Yes, mate. Again, I'd not heard of the bloke. I'll hold my hands up. I'd not heard of the bloke when I saw the first links to Plymouth Argyle, but then I think in terms of some of the names that were linked beforehand. I'm just typing them in because I wanted to, because I remember looking when they were linked with him originally, because some of the teams that he'd managed previously, and I'm just bringing it up, sorry. So he'd managed in Belgium, hadn't he? Was it Belgium beforehand? I'm just bringing it up, sorry, mate.
Cercle Bruges, he was at Cercle Bruges. Guys and girls watching may remember that they played Kilmarnock in the, I think it was Europa League qualifiers this season, which actually he done okay. He had a kind of 40% win percentage there. His previous club was Floridsdorfer. I think they're Austrian. He's an Austrian Bosnian, and he had a 43% win rate there as well. So he's certainly. I think the attraction is he's got an identity in terms of the way he likes to play. He's young, he's upcoming, and to a certain degree, obviously they've took a gamble in the sense of the position they're in.
Yeah, I think so. Look, what I was basically saying, like I said, I've just had to get him up on Wiki and have a look at who he managed. I remember looking at the time because, like I said to you, I didn't know who he was. I was having a look at who he'd managed. A couple of the teams he'd managed, I'd not even heard of. You know what I mean? So my initial take was, it's a big risk by Plymouth. I have to kind of applaud them in that in terms of, that's the kind of route that they've gone down, because I think for the team in Plymouth situation, I talked about Oxford United, and it looks like we were kind of right in what we both said, that Gary Rowett, lots of experience in the Championship at both ends of the table. That was the kind of perfect appointment, really, given their circumstances at the time. Someone like that to come in, steady the ship, get them organised, difficult to beat, and they've obviously gone on a bit of a good run. But I think that is the safe decision. It's the safe decision to make for these club owners, and I think, like I said, you have to kind of applaud a little bit the bravery of some of these owners who have gone down the route of, Muslic at Plymouth, is it Rubens at Hull? I always get his name wrong. Ruben Sellers at Hull. These teams have kind of taken a risk, undoubtedly, but they're, like you said, their thinking is that they want to bring someone in who's going to bring a bit of identity. They're kind of young, up and coming head coaches from the continent. That's very kind of, what should we say, like in at the moment, isn't it? Kind of bringing, taking a risk on these young head coaches from the continent, because we've just been talking about Danny Rowe. It can work out very well for you. There's obviously some talented young head coaches out there. It's a risk. It is. They were linked with Schumacher, return for Schumacher, and I thought that would have been the more sensible move for him to make, obviously because of his ties to the club previously, but he's got some experience of managing in the Championship, and obviously a lot of experience managing League One. If they were to go back down into that division, that would have been, like I said, the safe move for him to make. But they've took a risk. They've gone for this guy. Like you said, that video that went viral of him kind of introducing himself to the players and all the backroom staff, etc. I think it was off the back of the FA Cup game, wasn't it? I think he came in. It sounds a bit corny, a bit cheesy, but you do like a manager. You can imagine you would like a manager like that if you were a player. Someone, like you said, just get you riled up and pumped up.
It's almost Mel Gibson, Braveheart, Russell Crowe,
Gladiator, opening monologue kind of vibe, wasn't it? Yeah. That's it. But that can do you wonders, can't it? Especially considering they're right down there at the bottom, fighting for their lives. You need someone to come in and kind of bring that kind of siege mentality. You know, we've got to come together. We've got to fight for one another. It's going to be tough, but you know, we can do it. Yeah, that's exactly everything you want to hear. And it's probably, you know, it was probably great for those players, considering, you know, what happened with Rooney and how, you know, it kind of soured towards the end of his reign and he was falling out with certain players in the squad and it all got a bit messy and so on. You know, for him to come in and, you know, do what he did, you know, it's going to encourage him, isn't it? Like, look, the proof's in the pudding. You know, this guy's got to be given what I always think, maybe 10 matches, a dozen matches is always a good kind of, you know, in terms of getting a gauge as to, you know, whether any progress is being made or not. So, you know, time will tell, but, you know, they put in a, you know, decent performance against, you know, Oxford, who have been absolutely flying under Rowett of late. So, yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how that works out.
Well,
like I said,
you speak about obviously what going on with Rooney. The obvious, you know, thing that anyone could see was they were shipping a lot of goals. He's come in and said, "I want to make them organised, structured," and obviously, you know, we want to stay up. You look at the table now; they get a point. Result probably goes their way last night with Blackburn, you know, destroying Pompey up at Ewood. There's 6 points between them and Derby and 18th. They have still got a chance. They are still alive and kicking in this relegation battle. It's about how we can maybe pick up 1 or 2 points away from home. The issue was never at home park. The issue was always on the road.
Yeah, that's it. That's what he's got to try and turn around. Excuse me, because yeah, at home park, you know, that's obviously where they've picked up the vast majority of their points, and you know, the fair play to the home fans. Yeah, they haven't had, you know, much to cheer about, but they always get behind them at home park. You know, create a cracking atmosphere, get behind the players. You know, regardless of what's kind of playing out on the pitch. And yeah, they give everybody a game at home. You know, you really have to work for your points. You know, if you come away from there with something, you know, you really have to work for it. But yeah, they were really kind of frail and way too easy to beat, weren't they, away from home, shipping lots of goals under Rooney. So yeah, that's what he's going to obviously have to come in and sort out if he's got any chance of keeping them up. But you're right, they're well, you know, they're well in the mix still. You know, for all the kind of stick that Rooney was getting, and then look, I understand why they sacked him in the end. He still kept them within touching distance, you know, of those teams, you know, sat just outside of the relegation zone. So yeah, it's this is why you know, we love the Championship, because it's the battle at the bottom of the table is going to be as interesting as the battle at the top of the table, because yeah, like you said, there's only a few points separating kind of bottom and you know, Luton in 20th, but then you don't have to kind of, you know, it does, the teams going, you know, above, further up the table, you know, they aren't too far away either. A couple of good results, you know, 2 wins back to back, you know, you're going to soon start jumping up that table. So
listen, yeah, as QPR have shown us, you know, a bit of form, and you can slowly move up. I just wanted to draw attention to the fact that, you know, 4 out of the bottom 7 have all changed their manager. So Plymouth, Hull, Luton, Stoke, I mean, even Oxford, Coventry, Preston, not only Preston, but Millwall certainly have all changed their managers this season. You know, if we go, you know, cast our eyes back to last night, you know, Pompey have stuck with Mousinho. You know, what do you do in this situation? Because they're another one a bit like Plymouth. Their away form isn't fantastic. They've got to try and, you know, pick up as many points as they can at Fratton Park, but it looked so easy last night for Blackburn. I know they had a couple of new faces in. Sanderson was particularly impressive. You know, they got him in from Birmingham. He seemed to be really good in the middle of the pitch as well.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one with Portsmouth in that they picked up a bit, but they've taken a couple of heavy defeats of late, haven't they? And it's that progress that they made, they've almost been kind of pulled back, haven't they, a little bit? And it's they've kind of just kind of found themselves back in the position of, you know, a few weeks back when we were, you know, starting to, you know, get concerned about them and their chances of staying in the division. So, yeah, the thing with Portsmouth is, yeah, like I said, they've had a couple of bad defeats, lost to Blackburn comfortably, been shipping a few goals, but they are capable of putting in a performance. Like you said, they have started to improve at home at Bratton Park. And they're quite an entertaining team to watch, you know. So this is why I don't think the fans are too disgruntled, because, you know, they would have expected to be in a bit of a relegation dogfight this season. They're still in the mix. I think the fans quite like Mousinho. Like I said, quite like, you know, what he's trying to do there, like implement a style. Like I said, they are very kind of attack minded. They do like to get forward and try and score goals. But yeah, will it get to a point where the owners of Portsmouth look at, like you said, some of those other teams, like of Oxford, for example, of late, who've brought in a new manager and got a response and started to pull away from the relegation zone? You know, it becomes more and more tempting, doesn't it, to kind of roll the dice and give someone else a go and hopefully get a reaction. It's tough, mate. It's tough because some of those teams, like you said, pretty much all those teams down there, bar a couple, have changed their managers. So that risk isn't going to come off for some of those teams. That's just how it is. You know, some of those teams have obviously got to get relegated. So it's going to be fascinating, mate. Like, it'll be funny because I know we a couple of weeks, like probably a bit further back, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks, kind of picked our 3 teams to go down. Like, you know, I could probably pick 3 now, and they're probably completely different to the 3 that I picked a few weeks back. You know, so yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Like Cardiff, I thought they were going to start sinking like a stone. You know, I honestly did, but they've even picked up a little bit of late. I think they've had a few draws.
They're just doing enough, aren't they? They're just doing enough at the moment.
Yeah, they've got to win, and I think they've had a few draws, and they've kind of pulled themselves back out the relegation zone. So, you know, even when you've looked at them and thought, oh, that's the team, they're the ones who are going to start, you know, sinking.
Do you think, in terms of Hull, they seem to be every other day, you open up X, they're getting linked to players. They've obviously got backing from the Turkish owner. Do you think that could be maybe the difference in them? You know, I know they were linked to Whittaker at Plymouth. I know Burnley had gone in with a bid, and people were laughing as if to say, well, he's not going to go to Hull. He's at Plymouth. Nonetheless, the fact that they're even in the conversation shows that they've got some financial muscle. Do you think that could maybe be the difference about who, again, I know we sound cliche, but we keep talking about it, who does the best business, whether it's at the top or in the bottom of this case? Because, you know, I know they've got, we'll talk about transfers in a minute, they've brought one in on loan already, Hull. You know, if they can get a few more in, and he seems to be, I know they've been knocked out the FA Cup, probably to their advantage because they can focus on league business, but it means that they might have that bit more than a Cardiff, for instance.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, mate. I think it's a great point. I think, yeah, you know, we've talked about how important the January transfer window is going to be for those teams at the top, and, you know, deciding their fate. It's going to be exactly the same for the teams at the bottom. And you're right, in terms of the business that's been done so far, Hull City are the ones who have been making moves, and, you know, it seems like, you know, their business hasn't ended. You know, the owner and the manager are still keen to bring in more heads, and like you said, the kind of links to Whittaker, whilst it is a bit, you know, ambitious of them, it's promising for the fans to see that, you know, you're at least trying to make moves for players of that caliber to try and strengthen you and you know, pull you up the table. You know, you look at some of those other teams. I can't imagine Portsmouth, Plymouth are going to have too much money to spend. You know, that's just the situation that they find themselves in. You know, and their ownership. You know, the size of the club. You know, they have to operate within their means. So yeah, it's a good point, and, you know, it's yeah. I think Holland made a couple of good signings so far. They obviously bought in Geldhart from Leeds, who I quite rate, and Matt Crooks. I don't know if he's a player you're aware of. But
played for Rangers. Mark Warburton signed him for Rangers. He scored at Tynecastle. Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
so
yeah.
Listen, I think he was hard done by at Rangers. He didn't get an awful lot of game time. We brought him and Josh Windass on a free from Aki Stanley. And obviously Windass took the headlines, but Crooks didn't really get as much game time as he maybe could have. I think his first game was at Tynecastle. I think we got beat that day actually as well. Yeah, Joe Gethart as well was linked to Rangers a couple of weeks ago. He seemed to be linked with everyone. Every other day you open up X, he was linked. So nice to see he's found a home. He kind of burst onto the scene at least, didn't he? I think he got a goal in his debut off the bench, and then he kind of maybe petered out slightly. I think it might be under Bielsa. So it'd be nice to see if he can get back. And it's always difficult, I find, for players if you're moving in January, especially if you're a player that's not been playing for your club. Crooks has been playing in the US. I think he's been doing relatively well, but Gethart certainly different, side of that where he's not been playing. It's difficult to come in. You're not going to get a pre-season. You're trying to win the fans over early. So there's a lot of pressure, and add to that, you've joined a club in the relegation zone as well, relegation dogfight as well. So it's going to be one to watch. Certainly, just finally on the relegation side, Luton. They brought in Matty Bloomfield. Rob Edwards went. And we'd been talking about that since probably about mid-September. He finally went. It was maybe a part of the ways, and it must have been sad for certainly for Rob and his family having pulled everything into Luton. But Bloomfield, what do you make of that appointment? It's probably on the other side of what we're talking about. It's not a gorgeous foreign name. It's not an experienced Gary Rowett. They've gone for the up and coming, a manager whose trajectory is on the up. Is that one you can see working out?
I'm not too sure about this, mate, because look, I know he was having a cracking season, with Wycombe Wanderers in League One, but how many times have you seen kind of these head coaches have a really good promising season, or really good kind of what's he had here? He's only half a season. We're only halfway through the season, aren't we? And you'd probably struggle to find many people who, prior to the start of this season, you asked them who Matt Bloomfield was. There'll probably be a lot of people out there who are struggling to tell who he was, who he was managing, etc., etc. He's obviously had a cracking half a season with Wycombe Wanderers. They're up there, competing with Birmingham City, Wrexham, the two big spenders for that level. Great, but that's his achievement to date. It's he's had a good half a season in League One with one of the bigger teams in the division. So look, I'm not saying the guy hasn't got potential, he's not talented, but I just find in football, I don't know, sometimes managers, their stature and their kind of pedigree, so to speak, it just seems to rise instantly sometimes, doesn't it? And I think people can kind of get swept up a little bit in that. The same can be said, probably about a lot of appointments out there. But yeah, again, it kind of similar to what I was saying about the Plymouth boss being appointed. I think it's a big risk. I really do. I think Rob Edwards, I know.
But what's the bigger risk? What's the bigger risk for you? Is it the guy that's managed 3 or 4 clubs, who's got a win percentage that's steady at both clubs, or is it the young English manager who's had a flavour of the month burst, as you describe it as? He's done 6 months, but he knows the country. He kind of knows the division. What's the bigger risk for you?
Yeah, well, that's it though. He doesn't know the Championship, does he? Doesn't know the Championship, and I just think the situation again. Luton find themselves. Luton were in the Premier League last season. Obviously they found themselves in the Championship and they're struggling. They're not doing well. They've got rid of Rob Edwards, but then the kind of, I think what I'm trying to say is I think it's a bit of a panic appointment from Luton. I think Luton have looked at the League One and gone, oh, Wycombe are having a terrific season. Who's their manager? Oh, Matt Bloomfield. Let's go for him. That's the vibe I get from it. I don't feel like I've kind of seen enough from him, or what I'm saying is I don't feel like he's done enough, in his time as a head coach to justify, getting the role at a team who, yes, they're not doing very well this season in the Championship, but they were in the Premier League last season. I think he'll be absolutely buzzing. And look, I don't want to come across too harsh to the chap. He could be, the next big thing. Like I said, he was on a great season with Wickham. Like you said, he could just, take to Championship football, in his stride and kind of continue the good work he was doing at Wickham, bring it across to Luton. We'll see him start climbing up the table, and he could have, a bright future ahead of him. But I think the point I was just making is that I felt like the talk around him was a bit kind of, people were getting a bit like carried away with it, I guess. And I was just thinking, like, he hasn't really done that much as of yet. Kind of just calm down a little bit. This is a big risk. Luton are right down there in that relegation dogfight that we talked about, and they're bringing someone in who hasn't got any experience, in the Championship, at this level. It's going to be tough for him. A team who are really low on confidence. Arguably their confidence is going to be lower than some of those other teams down there, because some of those other teams, they expect to be, down there in a relegation fight because of, the fact that they come up from League One, the size of the club, etc., etc. So, whereas Luton, they came down from the Premier League last season, and they find themselves in a relegation fight in the Championship. It's going to be difficult for him to kind of get over that hurdle and get them kind of, thinking positively and kind of then, bringing that onto their performances on the pitch. Again, it's going to be really interesting to see how he does. Like I said, I didn't want to come across as I was slamming the guy. I just felt maybe
your honest opinion. That's what you're here for.
Yeah. Well, I felt like maybe he was a bit fortuitous. The fact that he's landed this job, and that people were just getting a little bit carried away about the fact okay, he's done Wickham are having a great season so far, and he's doing a cracking job, but that's it. Kind of. Let's just kind of rein it in a little bit here, and let's see how he gets on. With this big challenge. It is a big challenge to try and kind of get Luton playing again and up the table.
Okay, then I want you to channel your inner kind of Dama Sheff. You're going to be a transfer guru here on the Turtle podcast. Loads of transfers already happened. I think the Championship has moved really quickly, actually. Out of all the leagues, I think the Championship had a lot of action. None more so than the signing of Lefay initially on loan at Sunderland. This seemed to blow up much to your disgust, actually. It caused a lot of debate between you and I on our WhatsApp group. However, he's come in, I think he was 14-odd million quid. Roma paid for him. Registered Breach has managed to get him in on a loan deal. He's versatile. He can play a 6. He can play an 8. He can play a 10 as well. Albeit he walked out to a virtually empty Stadium of Light in that cup game against Stoke, and probably thought, what am I doing here? However, we will see what he's like. Maybe even on Friday night against Burnley at Toughmore, whether he gets a cameo role, whether he starts a game is yet to be seen. But let's call it out. The furore really annoyed you, didn't it? The furore of the signing got under your skin a little bit.
Yeah, 100%, mate. More than a little bit. I just kind of like, first and foremost, I'm not. There's bigger football nuts out there than me, but I do like to think that. Players of, prominent players on the continent. I like to watch quite a bit of European football, Champions League football, as well as kind of, football within the United Kingdom. First and foremost, like, I've not even heard of the guy. First and foremost, let's put it that way. I've not heard of the chap. So then, obviously, I see the kind of, social media just kind of exploding, going absolutely nuts. So I was then kind of sat there thinking, well, all right, I must be some sort of fool to not know who this guy is. The way people were going on, like people were out there claiming that this was the most high profile Championship signing of all time. So I'm kind of sat there thinking, how on earth do I not know who this guy is? So, you know, I'm straight away on there. Let's have a look, you know, who he's played for, you know, etc., etc. You look at his record, he hasn't done anything since, you know, he was at Lorient. You know, that seems to be where he kind of made a name for himself, you know, off the back of a couple of good seasons for Lorient in League One. But then ever since he's left Lorient, yeah, you just got to go and look at the stats. He's not really set the world alight. You know, he went to Rennes and didn't do much there, 25 appearances. And then he's gone to Roma, and it's just obviously not worked at Roma for whatever reason. You know, 6 appearances. Am I genuinely missing something? Like, I'm not saying that there isn't a talented player in there. You know, I think from what I've read, you know, the seasons he was kind of performing well for Lorient. Obviously, that's where Lebris knows him from, was his time obviously managing Lorient. So, and you know, he had a couple of really successful seasons there, and I think some of his numbers were up there with the likes of Neymar and stuff at the time in terms of chances made and this, that, and the other, which is fair enough. But you know, his career has undoubtedly tailed off since then. You know, he's not getting any game time at Roma, and you know, I don't want to kind of sound critical of Sunderland, you know, but if this guy was as good as some people out there are making him out to be, why is no one in the Premier League after this guy? Yeah, that's the way I look at it.
I think as well, like, Sunderland fans need to be aware that, you know, Lebris himself has said that we brought him in because we're going to need squad depth for the back end of the season. It says maybe reading between the lines that he's not going to be playing every week. You've already got Chris Rigg, who, by the way, passed his driving test yesterday. Well done, Chris. Love that. You've got Joe Bellingham in there, who's arguably one of the best, if not the best, talked about young talent in all the 4 divisions. In the 92, never mind the 72. Is it going to be a case of he's going to be in and out, and whether, you know, it's up to him whether he, you know, grabs his chance or not? I don't think he'll start, you know, in such a massive game on Friday night. We might see him for the last 20 minutes or so, but you know, if you're a Sunderland fan, you shouldn't really be pinning your hopes on him just yet.
Well, no, look, yeah, it's the Championship. It's going to be a hell of a lot different to you know, Serie A and playing in France as well. It's, you know, it has its own challenges. You know, it's difficulties. You know, there's been lots of kind of similar signings made. You know, kind of high profile players who've come in from the continent who have, you know, you were maybe expecting to kind of hit the ground running, and they haven't, because it's taken them time to, you know, adapt to the rigors, so to speak, of Championship football. So yeah, it's gonna undoubtedly take him a little bit of time to settle. But then, you know, what I then say to that though is kind of, well, he's been brought in on loan, hasn't he, to the end of the season, and I think then there's a potential deal if Sunderland get promoted to the Premier League. That's what I've read. So yeah, the you know, that in itself hints that this guy has been brought in to, you know, to try and, you know, to hopefully have an impact straight away and be, you know, thrown in there. I'm not saying straight away, but you know, I'm hoping, you know, Sunderland, you know, Lebris and the Sunderland fans will be hoping that it's not going to take him too long to adapt, and that he can kind of get up to speed quickly and start having an impact. You know what I mean? That's how it's been sold in terms of, like you said, all the kind of media frenzy and even Sunderland with the kind of posts they've been putting on their own socials, etc., is that this is this massive deal, you know, that's potentially going to change the course of their season and maybe see them, you know, lock down one of those top 2 spots. So look, again, I'm not, you know, this guy could come in and, you know, just light it up. You know, West Brom fan, I just think back to Matthias Pereira. You know, I'd not heard of Matthias Pereira when we brought him in from, I'm trying to think who it was now, in the Bundesliga. It was kind of one of the mid-table teams in the Bundesliga. We brought him in, and like, he was just unbelievable, mate. Just absolutely tore the division to shreds. He, you know, just set it alight. So you know, I think he's a similar kind of player, you know, small, skillful, tricky playmaker, scores goals, low centre of gravity, you know, from the clips I've seen of him. You know, I'm not saying it can't happen. I think all that was just annoying me was just the hype. The hype. I couldn't get my head around it because, like I said, I kind of looked at what he's done the last few seasons, not much at all. You know, his career at Roma just hasn't got going. You know, they've obviously felt, you know, they're willing to kind of loan him out somewhere else to get him off their books. And like I said, you know, if the guy was that good, then surely some Premier League teams would have been interested in.
Look, I'm not one to throw a mate under the bus, but you know, as an Albion fan, you were screaming the name Ruben Neves quite loud at one point, saying that
that was it, mate. Like, people were going. That was kind of what was annoying me the most, was that people, you know, all right, a lot of them were Sunderland fans that were getting a bit carried away and excited. And look, you know, that's part of football. That's fine. But then there was others, you know, who weren't Sunderland fans, who were kind of chirping up, saying, "Yeah, this is the most high-profile Championship signing of all time." And then, you know, thankfully, there was plenty, you know, not just myself, kind of saying, "Well, like I said, much it pains me to say, do you not remember that Wolves team, you know, that went up? Ruben Neves, Diego Jota, you know, like, come on, they're head and shoulders above it. I'm not saying this guy won't do well at Sunderland, and you know, obviously there's some potential there. There's, you know, he sounds a very exciting young player, but those signings, I don't think they'll ever be topped. You know, the Porto captain at the time, you know, Portuguese international, you know, to come and play for Wolves in the Championship. And I know Diego Jota wasn't as well known, but you know, look at where he is now. You know, with Liverpool, you know, one of the best kind of forwards in the Premier League. So, yeah, again, that's why I was getting a little bit annoyed. They were quick to kind of, you know, forget some of the signings that have been made in the past. Like I said, that Wolves team was absolutely ridiculous.
I'm sure their neighbours, Newcastle, even though in different divisions, will remind them very quickly if this guy doesn't do well in the first kind of 1 to 5 games. Let's just quickly pick out some other transfer stories, because I do want to speak about West Brom, if we can finish on that, if you don't mind, and maybe speak a little bit about the fixtures at the weekend. I know we're going to run slightly over, but who cares? It's almost the weekend. Other kind of signings. Anything that jumps out to you? I see that Gary Rowett's maybe trying to, you know, bring the band back together. He's signing a few players from his old Millwall side. I know Bradshaw's gone there. You look at Isaac Hayden gone to Pompey, which looks a really solid signing, actually. I know it's not one that's going to grab all the headlines, but it does look a really solid signing. Anything that really jumps out at you? Just actually, I want to add one that I saw tonight. I know it's not Championship related as so, but Norwich look to have be offloading Grant Hanley on a free to Birmingham. Seems like they're freeing up a lot of wages at the minute, Norwich. Obviously, Ashley Barnes is gone. Grant Hanley as well. Rangers were linked with Grant Hanley, but looks like he's going to go to Birmingham. I assume he's probably going to get more money there more than anything else. But yeah, just transfers in general, if you can just kind of sum it up and what's jumped out at you so far in the first kind of 16 days. Yeah,
like I said, it was kind of the ones I listed on the chat earlier. I think, yeah, Gary Rowett. Yeah, I've seen a few kind of funny tweets doing around where he's obviously trying to sign a few of the old
guys that he knows, and that's what you would expect from an experienced manager, Tom.
That's exactly it. Like he's you know, again, I touched on it earlier, and he's doing everything that I thought he would, and all of these things are the reason as to why I thought he was a good fit for Oxford. In that, yeah, he's now looking to sign, you know, solid Championship players. They're not players that are going to, you know, the Oxford fans are going to go, oh wow, you know, we've signed Tom Bradshaw from Millwall, you know, like what we've been talking about with Sunderland and you know, that signing. You know, they're not. It's not going to get those excitement levels up, but they're solid players who, you know, can perform well at this level. Have played obviously under Rowett, so know what he's all about.
There'll be a lot about trust. He'll trust these guys to keep them in the division.
Bradshaw, I think, is a great signing for him. Like I said, it's not a very kind of sexy signing, and you know, but it's just, I think if he makes a few more of those kind of additions, you know, I really fancy Oxford to kind of, you know, steer clear of the relegation drop zone. I think, yeah, he's making a couple of shrewd signings Rowett. Hayden, that one went under the radar. I didn't realise that had happened until yesterday. But yeah, he's a player, funnily enough, has been linked with us a few times in the past. But yeah, I think he's a really good addition for Portsmouth. I think that's probably what they're lacking a little bit. You know, the team, it's very much the guys, you know, the vast majority of the guys that got them up from League One last season. So, you know, what they really need is a bit more experienced players who have played, you know, at Championship level or even Premier League level, you know, who've got a bit more experience playing in the top levels to come in and try and help, you know, steady the ship a little bit, because, you know, we know they're really inconsistent. One week they put in a great performance at home and then get spanked away. So, you know, that's exactly the kind of signings I feel like Portsmouth need. You know, a couple of older heads with plenty of experience to come in there and try and, get an extra level out of those, you know, those League One guys. So yeah, that was a good addition. Like I said, touched on Geldhart and Brooks at Hull. I think they're two solid additions. You know, good players who have proven they can do a job at Championship level. That will undoubtedly improve them. Isaiah Jones to Luton. You know, we've obviously just been talking about Luton. You know, I think Bloomfield will be, you know, really pleased, you know, to see that signing done as he's coming through the door, because I do think Jones is a good player. It's only a couple of seasons back, you know, he was getting talked up as one of the best in the Championship, and it hasn't kind of carried on. You know, he's obviously lost his place to Ben Doak this season at Borough, but, you know, I think that's a good signing for them. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I think that's probably it. You know, we talked about who else is there? Who else did I put on that list here? I'm trying to think of
Aaron Conley, who obviously I'm sure Alec Neil probably knew from his time at Sunderland, and is taking him down there now that he's freed up Bradshaw.
Yeah, again, that's solid enough signing. He obviously wasn't getting much game time at Sunderland. You know, they took a bit of a gamble on him because he was a free agent. But yeah, it's not worked out. I think, yeah, there's potential there with Conley. But I remember reading earlier on in the season that he was having a bit of a tough time of things, and he was drinking a bit and stuff, and that's why he didn't get a new contract at Hull. So yeah, a bit of uncertainty with that one, you know, as to whether they can kind of get him back to where he once was. But if they can, again, a solid addition, you know, for the Championship. I think that's about it, really, isn't it, in terms of done deals? There's obviously lots of rumours flying around.
If that is about it, we'll deal with rumour when we come back on Monday night. Let's finish up on a real sort of personal note for you. This, you know, we're 22 days deep. Carlos Corberán left on Christmas Day or was announced at Valencia Christmas Day. West Brom are still managerless. Raphael Wicke is come and gone. You know, there's been another whole host of names thrown into the mix. But, you know, before we came on air, Alex Crooks, who you'll know maybe from Talk Sport, quite a credible source, has said that, you know, West Brom are looking to have negotiations with Tony Mowbray, a man who you know well, a man who you've gone on record with me the other night when I was walking the dog and said it's the best football you've ever seen at the Hawthorns in your kind of 30-odd years following the football club. So talk to us how you're feeling tonight. Do you think that's one that's going to latch on to the back end of this weekend, and maybe you might be in the dugout for that home game against Portsmouth next week?
Yeah, the more I read and the more, you know, like you said, there's a few more credible sources now coming out. A few of the more credible sources, you know, who kind of deal with Midlands football are kind of saying that there's definitely something there. I think it was confirmed that, you know, when it looked like, well, when we did make the move for Raphael Vicky, that there'd been discussions with Mowbray, but he was waiting for kind of the sign-offs with his health, you know, first before making any sort of decision about his future. And yeah, I think, yeah, with what's played out with Vicky, I think making a move for Mowbray now, the more I think about it, the more I think it is the right decision to make. I don't think, you know, I think the club will look to appoint him on, you know, a short-term deal or maybe like a rolling contract, something of that sort. because of obviously the issues he's had with his health recently. But from what I've read, he's had the all clear now. He's been given the green light to get back into management. So yeah, I think it's you always run the risk, don't you? Because like I said to you, he's my favourite Albion manager to date. When I kind of was really getting into football, he kind of took over at the club. As you know, he was Hibs manager prior to that, and he just transformed the team, man. We were such a joy to watch. Made some really shrewd signings, scored a lot of goals. Really enjoyable football. Got us promoted, and then obviously Celtic came and took him away from us. But he's got all the West Brom fans, I said, my age and older, have got real fond memories of him. Yes, you do run the risk of him coming back in and it not working out, and those memories kind of being tarnished somewhat. But I genuinely believe that he's still a top manager at this level. Like I sent you that posting just before we came on live, in terms of if you take Birmingham City out the equation because of they were struggling and his health issues, but he came in and he did steady the ship somewhat. He got 4 wins out of 8, I think it was. And they did see a bit of a upturn in fortune, but then obviously he had these issues with his health and he had to stop. But prior to that, his time with Sunderland and Blackburn, before that, he's always done really well in the Championship. I know he's kind of not got those teams he got Sunderland into the playoffs, but the teams are always there or thereabouts. They're all and he's not had loads of money to spend either. He's always done it on a tight budget. He's really good at kind of taking the promising youngsters from the youth system and incorporating them into the first team. So I think even if he hadn't been at the club previously, I think he ticks a lot of boxes in terms of who we are as a club at this moment in time. So
is there a danger of sentiment coming into play here? Because as you say, manager from October 2006 to June 2009, 1% of 41%. Really good times. Got you promoted from the Championship 2007-2008. Wins the title, I think by 2 points over Stoke that season. That was your first actual title since 1920, believe it or not. Got that same season, gets you into the FA Cup semi-final. You lose 1-0 to that Kanu goal. Really, really good times. You see the brand of football, the guys he brought in. Did he bring in Zoltan Guerra? Am I correct in saying that? Did he sign Zoltan Guerra? Or was it previous manager? But anyway, players as you say, that really got you off the edge of your seat. They always say don't go back. Now, again, not being biased, but the only man I can remember in my time who went back and made a success of it was Walter Smith. He went back to Rangers and he won more titles. Are you hoping it's that similar case for Tony Mowbray? Because I don't want to play too big a deal on it, but he has obviously had health issues. We don't want that to mar this second appointment or be an excuse. We really want him to come in and carry on that goodwill and hopefully nail a top 5, top 6 spot.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Look, you're right. This is what I worry about the most. Is like you said, that sentiment side of things. Him coming in, it not working out for whatever reason. Us kind of falling away, missing out on the playoffs, and his reputation being tarnished. But I just think I definitely feel there's more pros to cons in appointing him. I think, like I said, I think it's got to be a short-term contract. That's the only thing I would say. It's got to be a short-term contract, because I think, like you said, the issues with his health. Even though he's had the green light, sometimes you never know when these things are going to flare up again, especially cancer. You know what I mean? So, I'm just hoping that there can come to some sort of kind of middle ground, between what we potentially want and what he wants. But like I said to you, I think in terms of who we are as a club right now, our kind of spending power, we've talked on this podcast many a time about, our our youth system and some of the players that we've produced from our youth system. You know, we've really been lacking kind of for some time now, someone who's really willing to dip in there and take a risk on some of our youngsters and give them that opportunity in the first team. And that's something, you know, he's kind of notorious for doing, you know, most notably in his time at Sunderland. You know, the Sunderland you see now, some of these young guys, Moby was the one who kind of started that, giving those youngsters a chance, you know, and showing that if you do give them a chance and you believe in them, you know, they got into the playoffs that season, you know, just missed out on Premier League football. So, yeah, like I said, at first, I'll be honest with you, at first I was like, no, same as you, don't go back. It never really works out. But I think with the mess we made of the Vicky appointments, you know, where we find ourselves now, we need to bring, you know, I don't care what anyone says, you know, the longer we go without appointing someone, the more chance of it derailing our season, in my opinion. We need to bring someone in.
Not only that, though, I think that the more it goes on, the more maybe some sections of fans lose some faith in the owners, no?
100%. Absolutely spot on in that, you know, questions are being asked now with you know, how that deal with Vicky collapsed, and then, you know, the fact that, you know, you'd automatically like to think that, well, if that didn't work out, then there was others lined up, you know, ready to go straight away. Well, it seems like that, you know, isn't the case, and that they kind of pinned all their hopes on appointing Vicky, and then it was kind of almost a bit back to square one. You know, where do we go from here? So I think, you know, the good thing about Mowbray is there will be fans of the opinion that, yeah, you know, coming back, it's a risk, you know, like what we've said. Does it work out? No, more times than not it doesn't, but the vast majority of the fans will get behind him because of, you know, what he did with the club previously. You know, he's a really likable bloke as well. You know, he got on really well with the fan base. You know, it wasn't just his success, it was who he was as a person as well. You know, endeared himself to the fans. So yeah, the more I think about it, the more I think it makes sense. I'd be happy with the appointment. I think he's got the experience, the know-how to keep, you know, hit the ground running, keep us in this playoff mix. I do think, obviously, you know, I've been talking about the transfer window. We'll need a few additions, especially with Josh Meyer injured now for a few weeks, so he will have to be backed. But I think the owners will look to do that, and yeah, I'd be excited, mate. I would be excited for him coming back. Like I said, he's my favourite Albion manager today. I love the guy to bits. So, you know, for him to come back, and, you know, what a story that would be if he could get us into the Premier League once again. That'd be some story, wouldn't it? It'd be crazy. So
yeah, lovely arc, as they say. Well, here's hoping he's in the dugout for next Saturday, because that could be a surprise for us also. Okay, let's quickly have a quick swatch at the weekend's fixtures. I've picked out three that I think are quite big. We've got Burnley Sunderland on Friday. We've got West Brom Stoke on Saturday. And then we've got the big one, Leeds Sheffield Wednesday on Sunday. Just give us a quick bit on both, if you don't mind. Burnley Sunderland, obviously probably the biggest game of the weekend.
Yes, mate, absolutely. Yeah, it's a cracking game at the top of the table. Again, you know, both these teams are performing really well. Just no signs of slowing down. Are
you surprised Burnley haven't done loads and loads of business this window? Do you think they've actually sort of, they've been slow burners? They've come in, grown and grown as the weeks have went on, and maybe he's thinking he's got enough?
I don't think he's thinking they've got enough, but I think maybe because of, I think you do make a good point. I think because of how well they've done, you know, in the last couple of months, this great run that they've gone on, I think he's maybe reassessed things a bit and thought, maybe I don't need as many as I might have done kind of 6 weeks ago, you know, a bit longer maybe. And that, you know, he's now looking maybe more for a couple of, you know, quality additions to just kind of, you know, top up, you know, what they've got at this moment in time, which is, you know, the team sitting at the top of the table. So, but yeah, I think they've got the edge. They're at home, obviously. I don't think they ever conceded any goals at home, do they? It's absolutely ridiculous. So it's going to be a test for Sunderland. But you know what? With Sunderland, home or away, I fancy them. If they turn up and they're at their best, they can beat anyone home or away. So I think that, looking forward to watching that one, because as well, I think Sunderland will test Burnley. If Burnley can come out of that with a clean sheet, then fair play to them. You know what I mean? Because you know full well when Sunderland, rock up, that you are going to get tested. You are going to get pressured with that high press that they implement. So, that's going to be a cracker, I think.
Enzo Lafie, last minute winner. Yeah, the here first.
Well, mate, I'll tell you what, I'm excited to see the guy now because of, like I said, not knowing much about him, all the hype, all the talk. That's definitely adds an extra element to this game, because you'd feel that there's going to be a cameo at least, don't you, towards the end? So I'm excited to see what this guy's all about and what he can do, definitely.
And then the Hawthorn Saturday, obviously, Brunty and the boys will still be in the dugout. You'd imagine Stoker coming in. I don't think Mark Robbins was too awed by the display up at Sunderland. He said there's loads to improve. They've obviously lost Tom Cannon, who we spoke about the other night. A chance for Nathan Lowe to come in?
Yes, mate. Look, I tell you what, I am absolutely over the moon that Cannon was recalled and he's not, because I'll be honest with you, I am a bit nervous about this. We obviously got spanked against Bournemouth in the Cup. Look, yes, Bournemouth are doing fantastically well in the Premier League, but I still feel like, we kind of, we didn't show up. We didn't give anywhere near, good enough effort in that game. I know we made a few changes as well, but there's been a few kind of signs of, the naivety from Brunt and co, and a few signs that show their level and their experience. And this is why I'm desperate for someone to come in and steady the ship. And
from too many voices, maybe not one leader. They're all kind of chipping in. Maybe some different ideas. It looked like. Is it a Bala? I forget what's his name.
Yeah, Bala. Yeah, the coach. Yeah,
he looks like he's doing a lot of the guidance, a lot of the maybe the direction. Whereas Brunty might be the face of it. I don't know if you'd agree with that.
No, I do agree with that. He was obviously one of Corberan's guys. So in the last few games, he's been the one on the sideline, kind of encouraging and passing on the tactical messages and whatnot. I just think, mate, it's just a case of those three guys are coaches at the end of the day, and this has kind of been sprung on them. I think they've done incredibly well given the circumstances, but I just worry that kind of the longer it goes on, as a squad and as a team, like I said to you, I just think it will start kind of playing on your minds the fact that you haven't got the new boss in, the games are coming thick and fast. I think sooner rather than later, it will start having a say on performances and results. Do you know what I mean? That's just my opinion anyway. But I think Stoker, probably a good time to play them, I think, because I think there's, they're still in that transition period, aren't they, of Robbins coming in and them kind of getting to grips with how he wants to play and set up and his tactics and so on. And like I said, they've lost their best player, haven't they? Tom Cannon, the guy scoring the goals for him. So, I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think there's going to be much in it. But, I'd like to think that we could maybe do just enough to get, another win and keep in touch with those teams in the playoffs.
And Sunday then, let's talk about this ITV deal quickly. ITV also picked up some games free to air, which is great news if you're a Championship fan and you don't have the Sky package or etc. So that was something to definitely celebrate. It's an early kickoff, and these two teams will go hammer and tongs. The atmosphere will be electric.
Yeah, I think it's probably it's definitely two of the best fan bases in the division, if not the two best fan bases in the decision. So I think the atmosphere is going to be absolutely electric. I think ITV couldn't have picked a better game, really.
To start with, this is let's not get you hooked. Nothing will.
Yeah, and you know, and I don't know whether it's fortuitous or whether they've picked that game on purpose, but I think they've got a cracker because I think the atmosphere will be electric. I think it'll be a cracking game because, Leeds. Well, I say that, mate. Obviously, what we've all discussed at the start of the video. I think, if that hadn't happened, then I would be saying it's going to be a cracking game because we know what Leeds United are all about, and we know what Sheff Wed Wednesday and Danny Roll's team are all about. But it'll be interesting to see if there's any backlash from what we discussed at the start of the pod. But if Sheff Wed Wednesday and Danny Roll come to town and their minds are focused on the game, all that other stuff, they're not worried about it, and they play their game, and they go at Leeds as we know they can do, then it should make for a cracking game. And yeah, it's again, it went under the radar, that deal with ITV. I only kind of found out about it not that long ago.
Yeah, when they announced it.
Yeah, it's great because we're obviously big fans of the division, and I think it's for them to do that, then surely the viewing figures have got to be worthwhile. They've seen some benefit from doing this deal, haven't they? So
what I will say is that I live in South Yorkshire. I know both cities are working. Leeds, they're very much working class cities. I dare say this will increase the viewing figures. A lot of people may not be able, the cost of living crisis, etc., may not be able to afford Sky packages. Obviously, Sky do a lot of the Championship stuff, so I think it's a great move and one that's definitely welcome. The more Freeview stuff, the better for me.
100%, definitely, yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it there. It's been a really good shift. We'll come back on Monday night and review the weekend that was, hopefully celebrating Tony Mowbray's return, hopefully celebrating Enzo Lafay's hat-trick, hopefully celebrating Danny Rowe signing 6 players, but we will see. Tom, as always, I thank you for your company, mate. Anyone that's tuned in during, delighted Airwolf joined in for a little while, so thanks for joining us as well. There'll be clips going out through the next couple of days on X. Like, subscribe, and just give us a follow and get involved. Thanks for your time. See you on Monday.